The word of the Lord from James in chapter 3. Let not many of you become teachers, my brethren, for you know that we who teach shall be judged with greater strictness. For we all make mistakes, and if anyone makes no mistakes in what he says, he is a perfect man, able to bridle the whole body also. If we put bits into the mouths of horses, that they may obey us, we guide their whole bodies. Look at the ships also. Though they are so great and are driven by strong winds, they are guided by a very small rudder, wherever the will of the pilot directs. So the tongue is a little member and boasts of great things. How great a forest is set ablaze by a small fire. And the tongue is a fire. The tongue is an unrighteous world among our members, staining the whole body, setting on fire the cycle of nature, and set on fire by hell. For every kind of beast and bird, of reptile and sea creature can be tamed and has been tamed by mankind. But no human being can tame the tongue, a restless evil full of deadly poison. With it we bless the Lord and Father, and with it we curse men, who are made in the image and likeness of God. From the same mouth come blessing and cursing. My brethren, this ought not be so. Does a spring pour forth from the same opening fresh water and brackish? Can a fig tree, my brethren, yield olives, or a grapevine figs? No more can salt water yield fresh. The word of the Lord. Let's be seated. It's a very appropriate psalm reading for this morning. Venom of asps from the tongues and stuff. I thought about just reading the first verse and going home. Not many of you become teachers. I have three important words. You'll all have these. I want you to just reflect back for a moment and think through words in your life spoken to you that left a lasting impression one way or the other. I have three that come to mind anytime someone asks me something that I remembered that was said to me over the years. When I was in 6th grade, I met with the guidance counselor at my junior high school, and she read to me some words that a teacher had written about me, a report, and it said, if any child ever needed special education, it's this one. I was understandably depressed in junior high. And that's where actually another set of words, somewhat in response to those, that I still remember to this day and try to put into action to this day. It was my mom, which is where most families find serious wisdom. My mom said to me after I really was depressed, very depressed in junior high. I got up one morning and was in one of those moods, and she says, Todd, you can choose what kind of day this is going to be. You can choose whether you're going to have a good day, no matter what happens, or a bad day. And I don't know what it was. She'd probably said that 1,000 times, but for some reason that moment it sunk in, and ever since then I try to choose to have a good day. And then I have one more word. About 7 or 8 months after Jennifer died, I spent so much time in Dr. Weed's office. We were neighbors. And he told me one time, and it was right at the right time, he said, you know, you could lay on the couch and grow out your beard and wear a flannel shirt and never wash your clothes, and people would understand that. But how would that in any way honor her? And those words became a motivation to me to get up and move when it was time to get up and move. So words have great, great power. And a lot of times we remember certain words for all the rest of our lives. This text from James is somewhat difficult because it's hard to figure out exactly how it connects to the rest of the letter. And when I was reading through it, it seems just to stand out all by itself, and you think, how does it plug into the stuff before? Well, in chapter 2, James has been talking about faith without works is dead, and I read somewhere that words are works, and so it makes sense to plug it in here. Ralph Martin suggests that the context that James is addressing here is actually the community of the church. He uses the phrase the whole body 3 different times in the text. But most commentators disagree with him on that, thinking that he's reading into the text a higher sort of Pauline vision of the church than James has. Regardless of all of that, it seems to me to connect very well with the previous chapter in the sense that what we say is often what we do. And we ought to be in control of that. And so James begins with, "Let not many aspire to be teachers." I found I would be preaching this text a couple of months ago, or weeks ago, I guess, and I was really excited because it affirms my career choice of being a librarian. And it's not very often that you get to, preach at your colleagues. So, guys, listen up. Let not many of you become teachers. Matthew 12, 36 and 37, Jesus says, "I tell you, on the day of judgment, people will give account for every careless word they speak. By your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned." So, maybe a double portion for teachers as you address God's people and as you address the world around you. Remember those words. Every careless word spoken will be accounted for. I think sometimes we don't take Jesus very seriously in that, and James reminds us to take Jesus seriously in that. Note, too, in this passage here in verses 2 and following, that for James, kind of the pinnacle of Christian moral development is control of the tongue. If you can control the tongue, you can guide the ship. If you can control the tongue, you can lead the horse around, and all of those kinds of things. So this ultimate formation in Christ for which all Christians are striving is control of the tongue. And James seems to suggest that it may actually be possible here. That this kind of moral perfection, so James is the first Pelagian. How about that? But James has his community striving for control of the tongue. And then James switches a little bit and says it's impossible to control the tongue. The tongue is this uncontrollable, destructive fire raging out of control. I remember in 2011, I'm sure you all remember 2011 with the huge towering smoke coming our direction from Bastrop. At the same time, I got home from work one day, the big pall of smoke here, and I was walking around in my front yard, and I looked up and there's one of those 737s or whatever it is they carry around, that fire retardant, and he's flying over my house at maybe 200 feet, flaps down and everything, and he's about a mile from the house, starts dropping that orange stuff. And I'm thinking, this is a mile from the house. Well, there was, in fact, a pretty bad fire just a mile from our house, and it kind of makes you realize the kind of destruction that really is uncontrollable from a forest fire. And that's what James conjures up for us, is this fire that the tongue starts, that grows and grows and grows and goes out of control and destroys. I think also this text, if you notice in verse 7, every kind of beast and bird, of reptile and sea creature can be tamed and has been tamed. It called to mind for me really Genesis 1 and 2 and then Genesis 3. The creation, as man is given the command to subdue and exercise dominion over the creation, and then as the creation goes out of control in Genesis chapter 3. The tongue, I think, represents kind of the utter chaos of a sinful humanity at its worst for James here. Well, finally, in verses 9 through 12, I think really is probably the payoff of the text. And once again, James has foreshadowed this. He goes back to the double-minded man. Here, the double-minded man is also forked tongues. What comes out of the man is what defiles him. What reveals is on the inside, in the heart. With the same tongue, we utter blessings to the unseen God. and then turn around and deliver curses to the images of God walking around us. Which of those more accurately reflects the real state of our heart, James says? Well, we've all been here. We all know that what James says is true. I think that's in some ways why James is such a difficult letter to preach, because it preaches itself. We've all seen communities and families and friends torn apart by the power of the tongue, of the spoken word. So a couple of real quick points to close us with this morning. First, if you're going to be a teacher in the Lord's service, buckle up. I don't know that we take James very seriously here, but sometimes we should just be silent. Sometimes we think we have to speak, even though we're not equipped to do so. And sometimes we should just shut up. Secondly, we're on the road to perfection. This isn't to say that in this life, without the aid of the Spirit, as James himself says in 2:26, it's not to say without the aid of the Spirit we'll ever master the tongue. But I think that we like to read verse 2 with the, well, nobody's perfect hermeneutic. That is, nobody's perfect, so why try? And James says this is double-mindedness. It's forked-tongued. We need to be striving to check our hearts by checking our speech. Finally, human speech is incredibly powerful, maybe the most powerful thing that we do. The first human gift is to name the creatures. And all through Scripture, the Word is a powerful, powerful tool. Language and words and things like this are not something just to be well employed, but protected and guarded. I've got a great book down in the library that you should check out sometime called Caring for Words in a Culture of Lies. It talks about the ways in which advertising and other things in our culture have twisted words, drawing a lot on George Orwell's classic essay there as well. Well, we should be careful how we employ our speech, and this is true of all of us. Those of us who would take on the mantle of teacher or preacher or pastor in the Lord's church. There is a certain weight to the words that we employ. Let us use them wisely. May God indeed guard our tongues and give us the strength to master them this week. Thank you.